So today's book is The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. Probably most of you, maybe or not, I don't know Richard Dawkins. Richard Dawkins is a British evolutionary biologist and author. He's known for his work in promoting the gene-centered view of evolution, kind of challenging the theory from other scientists such as Darwin. He studied at Oxford University, where he started to gain some prominence with his first book, which is this one in 1976. Well, not his first book, but the first book which he started to get recognition. So this book introduced the concept of meme, which is a unit of cultural evolution, and it became a cornerstone in discussions of cultural transmissions. As well, he has multiple books that had an impact in society and have succeeded. For example, he released a book in 2006 called The God Delusion, where he argues against the existence of God and views about religion as a negative force in society. Dawkins, he led this figure in the new atheist movement due to this critique of religion in 2006. Richard Dawkins always advocates for science, education, and secularism. What does he aim with this? He aims to foster a greater understanding of science and reason in the public discourse. So today we will be talking about some of the things I mentioned, why he talks about the selfish gene, what does it mean exactly, that is what we're going to start with, the difference between replicators and vehicles, strategies for survival, the concept of the mean, altruism and selfishness in animals or the gene itself, gene manipulation and social behaviors, and then maybe some critiques or misinterpretations. So, why does he say the selfish gene, right? Firstly, we need to understand this. So, he introduces this revolutionary concept of gene-centered evolution, right? So, he argues that the fundamental unit of selection in the evolutionary process is not the species or the groups or nor the individual, but rather the gene itself. So Dawkins posits that genes are selfish entities that work to ensure their own survival and replication across generations. This way of looking at it has profound implications for understanding the evolutionary process. So it highlights the gene as a primary actor in the drama of life, driven by the imperative to survive and replicate in the gene pool, being chosen, going into the next generation. So Dawkins elaborates a distinction between replicators and vehicles. So replicators are the genes itself. They are long-lasting, high fecundity levels, the accuracy of replication. Therefore, if there is a gene that makes an error between 1 every 10 repetitions, and then there is another gene that makes an error every 100 repetitions, then gene X that makes a mistake every 100 repetitions will continue forward and is more likely to be chosen in the gene pool. These are some of the factors that genes must have in order to go into the next generations. So stable entities, which is basically a accumulation of atoms, right, that get together until they are important enough or common enough to receive a name, to have a name, pass on genetic information from generation to generation. However, there are two types of genes, recessive and dominant. Recessive genes are the ones that stay in the gene pool and are not chosen to go into the following generation. And then dominant are the genes that continue on the DNA chain. Then we have lethal genes and semi-lethal genes, right? So the lethal genes are the ones that kill you, that your body automatically creates or generates some kind of disease or an immunity to certain diseases or viruses, therefore is called lethal gene. And then we have semi-lethal genes. Semi-lethal genes are the genes that may increase the likelihood of dying, but doesn't necessarily kill you. So we have late acting lethal genes and early lethal acting genes. So the late acting lethal genes are basically those who can kill you after the reproduction stage. So maybe you get cancer when you are 40, 50, 60. These type of genes are likely to pass on to the next generation. However, on the other side, we have as well early acting lethal genes, which are the genes that can kill kids or people at a young age at an early stage of life before even reproduction. So these genes are more likely to not be chosen from the gene pool when passing on to the next generation. Then we have the vehicles. As you may guess, the vehicles, as Richard Dawkins mentions and refers to, are the bodies that carry these genes. So according to Dawkins, the primary function of these vehicles basically is to provide a protective environment where genes can survive and replicate and be passed on to the next generation. So he explains that the vehicles, which include individual organisms, are constructed by genes and are crucial to their master plan of survival and replication. So this point of view is really cool because it challenges as well the way of thinking and thinking of us and the way we evolve. So this concept underscores the idea that while organisms may seem to be the protagonists of evolutionary stories, they are actually secondary to the genes that they carry. Organisms, it refers to humans, any type of animal, any type of living organism, a plant, whatever. So this framework helps us to understand why certain traits evolve, focusing on their benefit to the genes rather than on the individual or species. And I wanted to add something that the more you simulate or mimic the properties of a young body in an old one, the longer your body should live. Why? Because you are making the genes, not the genes, but the way the genes program your body confused. So, so they may think you haven't reproduced yet, so you still didn't complete your mission on this world, which is reproduce and keep spreading these genes onto more generations with offsprings. So there are many strategies for survival. So Richard Dawkins, throughout this book, he reveals and explores various strategies that genes employ to ensure their survival and replication. So he discusses that how genes can adopt different roles and behaviors depending on their environment and competition with other genes. Some of these strategies may include, for example, selfishness, cooperation, conflict and manipulation, kin selection, and altruism. So, selfishness. Some genes they promote their survival even if it means disadvantaging other genes, including those in the same organism. So let's imagine in nature, right, a mom or a dad, right, has his kids as a babies, and there are predators around which can attack. And then they have two options. The mother, as a mother or as a father, they have two options. First one, which is protecting her or his babies by putting herself or himself um in the middle as a prey, maybe risking his or her life. And then the second option is flying away. Let's imagine it's a bird flying away and leaving his babies as the prey. So there is a reasoning for each one of the options. So if the mother thinks in terms of gene selfishness, the most reasonable thing to do, it would be, well, the reasoning that this female will do or male is basically thinking the energy that it took her or that she invested on these babies, how long it will take them and how long or the possibilities for them to survive until they can reproduce and keep spreading these genes. And then if she loses her babies, what are the chances and how much she needs to invest again in order to come up with offsprings that will be able to keep reproducing and spreading the genes from one generation into another. This is a case of selfishness from the gene point of view, because at the end, the objective of the gene is to keep replicating itself and reproducing. Then there is cooperation, which is basically genes can also achieve success by cooperating with each other. So they can form alliances in order to enhance their mutual survival chances. So this cooperation can be seen in complex organisms where genes work together to build a functional being. An example of this, for example, if we dive deep into the ocean, we can find, for example, sharks. Sometimes they are accompanied by small fishes that swim next to them. So what is this relationship? So the small fishes, they clean the sharks or they eat their bacteria or whatever, and the shark in exchange will provide them with a defense maybe from bigger fishes or predators. And this is the way they are programmed um, by the genes. So this is something that when they born, they know already is the easiest way for them to survive. And then each organism, as a vehicle, um, makes the objective of the gene of reproducing possible. Then we have another strategy, which is conflict and manipulation. So Dawkins details scenarios where genes might conflict with one another, such in the case of parasitic genes that manipulate their hosts to advance their own interest at the host's expense. There are many examples where bacteria or whatever, for example, enter into insects and they start eating all of the food and nutrients that this host is looking for and consuming. So the genes of those bacteria are to enter into these insects. So through these strategies, what Dawkins tried to illustrate is the nuanced and sometimes counterintuitive ways in which genes can enhance their transmission to the next generation, adapting dynamically to the ecological and social environments that they may encounter. But again, this is not the genes making decisions at each moment. is the way genes program the human bodies to act in a certain way. It's as if you think of playing chess against a machine, right? The programmers sit down and program the whole code in order for the computer to understand the rules, some strategies to win, etc. But this is machine learning. Then the machine will try to understand by trial and error which are the best strategies in order to win. So this is the same thing. And then the machine will choose some strategies rather than others in order to make a better decision depending was the decision made by the opponent with the final objective of winning, in this case reproducing and surviving time enough to reproduce. The concept of the meme. So Dawkins introduces the concept of the meme. So it's a term that he coined to describe units of cultural evolution. So memes are the ideas, the behaviors or styles that spread within a culture through imitation and communication, from a father to a son, etc. So, like genes, memes replicate too. They mutate and respond to selective pressures. Dawkins argues that just as biological evolution is driven by the survival of the fittest genes in a gene pool, cultural evolution is driven by the most effective memes in a meme pool. So memes are more effective at being communicated and remembered, spread more extensively, and persist longer in cultures um, and communities. So within cultures. A cool example for you to understand what a meme is exactly is religion. So religion is passed on to generations. Me, I was born and raised in Spain, and both of my parents are from Argentina. Therefore, I wasn't raised by Christianity or Islam, anything. I was raised as an atheist, right? So this is the meme that was passed from my generation to another. However, my parents, they may were raised in a more religious environment, but for specific reasons, those memes were not chosen from the meme pool. So religion has benefits. For example, religion. So tribal religion has been seen as a mechanism for solidifying groups' identities, valuable for pack hunting species whose individuals rely on cooperation to catch large and fast prey. Then, meme propagate themselves in the meme pool by leaping from brain to brain, by a process which in the broad sense can be called imitation. For example, if you see Muslim fathers, when they have their own sons and daughters, they take them with them to the masjid, to the mosque. They make them pray with them, be there, see everyone praying, doing the same ritual. Therefore, it's passed from one brain to another by mimicking, by simulating the same way of acting. So, the idea of God, it provides a superficially plausible answer to deep and traveling questions about existence. It gives answers to a lot of people about a lot of big questions that they have, but they may not be able to look for the real answers from my point of view. Therefore, for a lot of people, this meme is a meme that must be chosen in the meme pool. Why? Because it has the answers to many questions and many other reasons. Maybe because as well, if it wasn't for a superior force, they were not able to take decisions such as not drinking alcohol or taking care of themselves, or and many being a good son, a good father, etc. So, for example, even the idea of hell, fire, is quite simply as a self-perpetuating idea, because of its own deep psychological impact. The way that I'm just like, the more you read these types of books, the more you understand religion or God as we think of, kind of like a impersonated idea, doesn't exist. However, um, doesn't matter. So I respect all type of religions and ways of thinking. I don't judge anyone. So this is what he refers by memes. By the way, if you guys want, I have a summary below in the description where you guys can find a summary of the book with the most important takeaways. And if you need it, you have it there. So the meme concept allows us to understand cultural evolution within an evolutionary framework. So it emphasizes that ideas and cultural phenomena often evolve not for the benefit of human hosts, but because they are effective at replicating themselves. So this perspective actually laid the groundwork for the field of memetics, so the study of how memes propagate through human societies, and the study of genetics in the biological realm. Then I wanted to talk about something cool that I found, that is family planning. So Richard Dawkins says that uncontrolled birth rates are bound to lead to horribly increased of death rates. Why? He says that there is a point, there is a number that depends on which species we're talking about, what is the environment, etc., in order to for the children to survive. For example, accessibility to food, water, the likelihood of being affected by viruses. So Dawkins says that individuals who have too many children are penalized. Especially in nature, parents have more children that they can support. Will so this and this will lead to not having many grandchildren. So their genes will not be passed into future generations. So if you think like hundreds of years ago, not so far, but 200, 100 years ago, families, or even nowadays in less developed countries, have these kind of problems. And is that when they have 10 kids, maybe half of them reach adult stage of life for many reasons. Then I want to talk about altruism and selfishness. So Dawkins tackles the complex issue of altruism within his framework of evolutionary biology. So Dawkins argues what that uh, altruism is like another form of selfishness at the genetic level. So this concept is grounded in the idea that genes propagate themselves not only through direct reproduction but also by aiding the reproduction of genetically similar individuals. And here is when we come to talk about if parents have they prefer some kids than others, what is the relationship between brothers and sisters or daughters or whatever. So this kin selection theory clarifies why organisms might behave altruistically towards their kin. Their genes are ensuring, or they have higher chances of going from one generation to another, um, by ensuring or increasing the chances of their living or their kin living. So, for example, when it comes to thinking For example, let's say a father has 1 kilo of meat, but he has a big family to or a community to feed. So he will. This is the way it's explained, but this is all unconsciously, right? There is no conscious thinking in everything we're talking about. It's just by the way we are programmed, the way we are wired, that we act in a certain way. So he will say each of his kids have 50% of their genes and 50% of the other, right? So already kids have 50% of their genes. Then brothers and sisters from the father, they have as well their 50% the same genes as them. However, their kids have 25% of their genes, the same as his future grandchildren. However, himself, he has 100% of their genes. So then he will decide, probably he will feed himself first and then he will feed his kids. Why as well? Because even if these kids die or whatever, but he's still alive, he will be able to keep reproducing and spreading his genes. This is a point of view again from the gene point of view, unconscious. There is no type of conscious thinking here. As well, according to Dawkins, parents don't have kind of like favorite um, offspring child or whatever. Then we have the reciprocal altruism. So beyond kin, Dawkins discusses reciprocal altruism, which is individuals that act altruistically towards non-relatives with the expectation that they will favor their return in the future. So, for example, as we talked before about the shark and the fish that cleans and for the shark, and then the shark protects him. Here is where animals have two choices: cooperate or defect, and this happens in all species, in all type of species, even if is in the same species group or with other animals from different species that can enter in in a symbiotic relationship. That's what the word I was looking for. So where two individuals or two organisms help each other. However, there is one always that helps the other one first. So then he decides to cooperate. But then the other, he has the ability to defect or cooperate too. So, for example, we have the shark that protects the fish, and the fish cleans the inside the mouth of a shark or a whale. So, the shark first protects the fish from other predators. Then, the fish, when it comes to clean the shark's mouth, he has two options. He cooperates and cleans the shark's mouth, or he defects and he doesn't clean it. However, when it comes to the shark's turn to protect the fish, the shark will decide upon the fish previous action. So through these mechanisms, animals and species, they cooperate with each other in multiple ways. Therefore, they will decide whether to cooperate or defect, but always animals in general the best, they can get the most by always cooperating, both of them. They is where they will benefit the most, because actually you can benefit the most if you receive but then you don't give, but then the other animal, he would not protect you, the shark will not protect the fish anymore, right? So, and like neither of them know when is gonna be the end of this relationship, because if they knew, for example, okay, we are gonna help each other 10 times, so I can trick you in the last one, so as I'm not gonna need you anymore, then I will defect you. But like they don't know for how long they're gonna be together, the best way for them is to cooperate with each other. So through these mechanisms, Dawkins as well illustrates how seemingly altruistic behaviors can be a strategy employed by genes to maximize their own survival and replication of their genes. Well, these are some examples of what Richard Dawkins talked throughout his book. There is he talks about a lot of different stuff and a lot of different points of view and his opinion about biology, the way we're wired. Is super cool. I recommend reading it. It's a long book, kind of, but the amount of information and the way you structure your head after reading this type of books is great. I don't consider myself an expert on what he said, not at all. I read it once. I'm planning to read it multiple times in order to get all of the information that he says and understanding it fully. But maybe with this book, you got an idea of some of the things that he talks about. Again, the summary is on the description. I hope you like it. Next time, let me know as well if you prefer longer or shorter videos. But maybe I start making them a bit shorter. I will see. But yeah, the Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. See you soon, guys.